everyone. Welcome to Goodnight Mr. Coconut, the rise and fall of Neopets. This is actually my second time running this panel, or I guess talk. The first time I ran this was back in February 2019 at a panel at a smaller convention in upstate New York. So yeah, it's been a while, but I've included some more information, not only just updating to the time between the information that I have from the stuff that happened after I first did this panel, but also some other things that I found out. Like, I think there was one thing that I found out, like, last week that I put in here because I thought it was interesting. There's also some smaller things that I forgot for some reason that are now in this panel, so it's a little bit more up to date. All the slides are mostly prettier, and are in Montserrat font, which is my favorite font these days. Don't at me. I love that font. I use it on everything, including this. So without further ado, here we go. All right. So hi there. I'm a games industry community manager with experience across PC, console, and mobile games. I love all these things that I put here. So Dungeons and Dragons, I've been playing in a campaign since like April. It's like my first long-term campaign. I love that game. It's a lot of fun. I also love Supergiant games. The thing that I'm known for that's not talking about Neopets incessantly is talking about Pyre and trying to get people to play Pyre, because that's like one of my favorite games. Please play Pyre, I'm begging you. Musical theater. So when there's not a pandemic going on, I like doing community theater stuff. That's a lot of fun. Cartoons, I love drawing them. I love watching them. Telling people random facts about Neopets is probably the one I'm the most... I don't want to say infamous. I can't think of the right word for it. But a lot of people know me for talking about Neopets a lot. It's kind of my brand. Actually, speaking of it being my brand, so I was playing Quiplash literally the day before I recorded this. And one of my friends, we were doing an in-jokes pack for our friend group. And one of the questions she put in was, Catherine has changed her brand from Neopets to blank. Which is hilarious because that's the one that showed up on my device. So I had to answer that. I think I answered Cats 2019. Please don't make my brand Cats 2019. But it's kind of become an integral part of my personal brand, and I wear that badge with pride. So anyway, before we get started, just quick, here are my pets. I do still actively have a Neopets account that I check in on every so often. What sort of self-respecting Neopets fan would I be if I didn't show you all my 5 beautiful children who I love very much. This is actually not the first account that I've played Neopets on. The one that I played on in my childhood unfortunately got hacked and frozen, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. My fan fiction's still in the Neopian times. I'm not going to tell you where that is. You can find it yourself. It's not good, but it's still, you can't erase my original account entirely from the site because that stuff is still there, unfortunately. So yeah, let's go into, for all you who have never played Neopets before or are just vaguely familiar with it, wow, what's Neopets? So it's a children's site where you can own and raise pets. They cannot die, even in combat. Okay. I need to stress that enough. You can starve them to death, but you can't actually kill them. Don't starve your pets. Please feed them. It's currently making the Flash from HTML, or Flash 5 to HTML. I can't speak today. It's currently making the transition from Flash to HTML5. It's got a bad economy, which we'll talk about. It's got a very infamously messy stock market, but it's got a great newspaper. Except for the stuff that I wrote that I was just telling you about from the Neopian times. My fan fiction from, early high school. Alright, so the beginning. So the founders of the site are 2 people named Adam Powell and Donna Williams. So they were high school sweethearts that set out to make the site back in 1997 when they were in college in Wales together. Adam did the coding, Donna did the web design and art, and she claims that this is despite not knowing how to draw. And contrary to the popular belief that Neopets was intended to be a site for, bored college students who didn't have a pet, there was no set demographic in mind when they made Neopets. It just kind of was a thing, They wanted to make it for fun. They just want a fun pet site. So together, they formally launched the site on November 15th, 1999. So here on out, just to clarify... So on Neopets, they measure time in terms of like years since the site was made. So the first year of the site actually takes place in 1999, despite the fact that the site was made at the end of that year. And year 2 picks up at the beginning of 2020. Not 2020. That's wrong. The beginning of 2000. So just, I will put some dates like here and there interspersed in the presentation just so we have some general sense of what the actual time is. But for the sake of continuity, I'm going to measure it in terms of these weird years that they do. And there were 19 pets available at launch. The Aisha, the Kiko, the Chia, the Korbat, the Irie, the Kiri, the Jub Jub, the Lenny, I have a whole list of these, the Kachik, the Nemo, the Scorchio, the Cow, the Skeeth, the Bruce, the Mincy, which originally was some of these pets had different names and designs originally than what they ended up becoming, but the Mincy used to be called Mellish, and it was a crude drawing of one of Adam's friends. I don't think I have a picture of it in the presentation, but you can look it up later. It's great. The Usul, the Waki, the Tuscanini, and the Uni. So here are a bunch of those pets. There's also the Grindo on there. I don't think I mentioned that. We'll talk about the Grindo in a little bit. I love the Quiggle's dumb little face. It's just so delightful. So like I said, the years in the Neopets continuity are measured kind of weirdly. And we're just gonna go with this for the sake of continuity with how the site measures time. So year 2 is the year 2000, which is the first full year of the site. And yeah, they added all, like, a bunch of new pets and stuff. So there's, like, the Bloomaroo and the Techo and the Elefante and the Mohawk and all these fun friends here. But that's not the only thing that got added to the site. So if you know anything about Neopets, you've probably heard about this. But Neopets has some previous ties to Scientology, which is interesting. So if you're familiar with Neopets at all, you've probably heard about this. According to Wired, in January of year 2, a Scientologist named Doug Doring took an interest in the site and bought a majority share for a very large, undisclosed amount of money. We don't know how much. This is not the only time Neopets makes a deal where we don't know how much was involved in the transaction. But yeah, so Doug was a big fan of this thing called immersive advertising, which if you played Neopets in the early days, you've probably seen this firsthand. So, immersive advertising more or less is kind of product placement inside of the game world so that when kids leave the computer screen, they go to their parents and they're like, hey, I want to buy this thing I saw on the site, or this thing looked really cool from, like, they remembered it from when they played Neopets that day or something. Whether or not this is an ethical way to market a product is debatable, but Doug's interest in this technique helped shape the site in its earliest days. So again, like, if you played Neopets in the early 2000s, you've probably already witnessed how this kind of intersperses in the world. So, like, this screenshot's an example. I think the movie theater is probably also a very good example. There were some tie-in games as well, that were, like, sponsorship deals and stuff. But there's one other change that he made that was a very smart idea because it kept Neopets from getting sued. So basically, like I mentioned before, some of the pets on the site had different looks and appearances and stuff. Some different names as well because they were pop culture references. And Doug was like, we gotta get rid of those because I don't want to get sued. Which, I mean, no one wants to get sued. So he pushed the Neopets team to change these things. So one good example is the Bruce, which you probably know as this cute little penguin guy. But originally he was just a caricature of this guy named Bruce Forsyth, who's a British entertainer. And then they were like, yeah, you gotta change that. So he kept the name. It's still a Bruce. It's still the Bruce, but it's now this cute little penguin with a bow tie, which can't really argue about that. Penguins are cute. And then now we're going to get into the infamous Neopets stock market, which is another thing where if you know anything about Neopets, you've probably heard a little bit about the Neopets economy. So the Neopets economy has a reputation for being a bit of a mess, but was it always set up to be this way? You know, it had some pretty rocky beginnings, so yeah, so in the earliest days of the Neopets stock market, it is announced in July of the year 2000, year 2. And then exactly a month later, it launches. And then things aren't looking that great at the beginning. And then this guy named Nigel the Chia saw things heading south and tried to fund the stock market with his own personal money because clearly that's a great idea and nothing could possibly go wrong. And then it goes wrong, and the first crash in the Neopets stock market happens in year 2 on December 5th. And then the stocks drop a whopping 94% this first time, and the year ends with another stock market crash on New Year's Eve. So this probably wasn't aided by the short-lived bank loans feature that the site had for a few months, but then the team got rid of it because it was like entirely broken and easy to exploit, and it was like, I don't think that probably helped. It was probably a smart move to get rid of loans. But yeah, so Neopets stock market it had some pretty rocky beginnings, and you can kind of feel that in the later years of the site and stuff. We'll talk about this again in a little bit. And then there's the first site plot. So these site plots were kind of regular occurrences to expand upon the world building on Neopets, as well as to introduce new site features, and as we'll see later, like new map designs and stuff. We're not going to talk about all of them. We're just going to talk about a few of these. Some of the more integral ones, some of the earlier ones. So in the first one, this weird alien dude named Dr. Sloth shows up to abduct Neopets and then turns them into mutants. So he tries to capture the space fairy Mira in the middle of trying to push this plan forward. And in order to free her, all the users on the site had to free 20,000 of these little alien monster pets called Grundos, which we saw a few slides back. He gets close to making his evil dreams come true, but then Mira is freed in the nick of time and then stops his weird mutant ray thing. And then Sloth is presumed dead at the end of everything, but he actually gets another plot a bit later. So he was never actually dead. He just kind of did his thing. And a fun fact is that Sloth is actually Adam, one of the site's co-creators' favorite villains in the site lore. So some other fun facts about year 2, the site actually grew pretty unexpectedly quickly, and they were constantly doing maintenance and upgrades to the servers as a result. Also, because of the big investment that Doug Doring had put into the site, they were able to move the whole team to Glendale in California. And then, yeah, some other things that were added were the guilds feature, which is kind of this... I mean, it's kind of, if you're familiar with online gaming communities, it's basically just like a big conglomerate of people who have the same interests who are playing Neopets and stuff. There's like its own special message board inside of each guild and stuff, and all pretty good things. And then there was also this weird feature called NeoCam that they had for a while, and then they've since discontinued, where it would basically stalk team members in the office. So this is a screenshot, or this is an image I found on Google of one of the NeoCam images, but it would just be throughout the day. It would take pictures of people across the office and then post it to the site so you could see what they were doing. It was wild. But yeah, so at the end of the first year of the site, 5 million accounts, 6 million Neopets. Also, one more thing, so Neopian Standard Time was a thing that was introduced. So when the team moved to Glendale, the site was kind of like, they picked a standard clock to follow for in-game events and stuff that was based on Pacific Standard Time. So if you look at the clock in the corner, you'll see that the clock correlates to Pacific Time. All right, so year 3. So with that, Neopets started out as an overwhelming success. So let's see what the site did in year 3. We got pets. We got new pets. We got Chambi, we got Pateri, and we got the Mircia. I don't know how to pronounce these. I think it's Mirka. But yeah, we got pets. We got another plot. A guy dies. Rest in peace. So basically it's a murder mystery plot where you're trying to find out who was the culprit behind the murder of King Coltsan. The earlier Neopets plots in particular were a little bit more off the walls. Not to say the later ones weren't good, the later ones were really interesting. But yeah, F's in the chat for Coltsan, rip. There's another plot where there's a war. The cavemen go to war. It's called the Tyranian invasion plot, and this is what introduces the Chambi, which we saw a few slides back, and the area of Tyrania. This is the first plot to use the Battle Dome as a gameplay mechanic for moving the plot forward. There's a lot of war plots in the very beginning of the site in particular, but some of them do like a hybrid approach where there's some puzzles, there's some reading a comic, and then there's some Battle Dome section too. But in the very early days, a lot of them were wars for some reason. 2 more areas are added, so we have Fairyland on the left and Croc Island on the right. We'll talk about Fairyland a little bit more later because there's some weird stuff that happens with it. There's also stuffed animals now, so the first line of Neopets merch is also released. I think they released them at, like, Limited 2 or something. I had some of these when I was younger. I think I got one at, like, Borders, I forget. I had the one in the top right. I definitely had that one somewhere. I don't know if I still have it. But they were cute. They were cute. I mean, some of the earlier ones, not so much, but the later ones got really good. And then there's another stock market crash. So it wouldn't be another year on Neopets without another financial disaster, and the site crashes once in June and another time in November. And now we're at year 4. So we are at 2006 now. More pets. Say hello to the Drake, the Tonu, the Ixie, and the Croc. They got these cool friends here. And there's more war. There's more war. So Meridell's fighting against the forces of Lord Darrigan, who's this weird gothy dude. You can look him up later. So Darrigan wins, but we'll talk about this again later because we're not done with him. And then there's some rumors about this place called Jelly World. I think those rumors are fake. Stop asking about it. It's not real. Jelly World doesn't exist. Anyway, the next slide. This year's finance report. The Neopets economy continues to be a mess as inflation causes lower cost items to spike in price. Also, the tax beast is added as a character on the site to make sure your innocent little Kachik doesn't try to commit tax fraud. Also, I just realized, I think I said this was 2006. This is 2002. I can't do math. So we're in 2002 right now. But yeah, so your Kachik can't commit tax fraud. I'm sorry to hear that. If you were looking forward to doing that, you'll have to talk to Yoshi. I don't know. Anyway, now we're in year 5, where there are no new pets. There are no new pets, but we'll see some more later. We do get 2 more lands, so I guess that's gotta mean something. So we got, on the left, we've got Rue Island, and on the right we have Kiko Lake. We also have the first issue of the Neopets magazine releasing this year. I don't have them on me because I'm not at home right now recording this, but, I do have, like, copies of this because I had a friend who found them, like, at some, like, thrift store or something. They're really cool looking. It wasn't a very widely distributed kind of thing. It was only a few issues, really. But it's really cool looking. If you ever get your hands on a copy, I think you can get them on eBay. And yeah, we have a trading card game that they made in collaboration with Wizards of the Coast. It was a really cool looking game. I never actually got to play it because I had no friends who played Neopets as a kid. But the art on the cards was like really nice. And I don't know. I wish I knew where my cards were because I really liked mine and there were some really nice ones. They also came with like little codes you could redeem for items on the site, which is pretty cool. I got a really nice one once that was like, could have sold for a lot more. I sold it for enough to buy a baby paintbrush because I was a dumb child. But yeah, I mean, you can get some really nice items from those card codes too, which is pretty cool. There was an April Fool's Day joke that turned the site into this totally radical early 2000s layout for like a hot second. It pretends to also get rid of whatever is left of the economy, so we were robbed of a completely anti-capitalist Neopets thanks to this April Fool's Day joke. This page is actually still live for some reason. You can look it up if you really want to see it. Some other things. Pets are a thing. Pets randomly turn blue when sad. This doesn't happen anymore. They stopped this a few years back. It would also be that, like, pets would randomly turn red when angry, I believe, too. But this was a thing starting in this year that thankfully they don't do anymore. Because it could happen to any pet. And then, like I said, Darrigan's back. He tries and fails to destroy Neopia. And now he's out of here. See ya later, man. Donna also becomes the root canal champion. I think this was like something Adam added to the site because Donna had to get a root canal or something, which is pretty cute, I guess. And then a glitch also resets user stats for a hot second. Oops! That's not great. Year 6! Happy birthday! It's Neopets' 5th birthday. At the end of this year. So that's pretty cool. There's also 2 more pets added this year. So we got the Bori, which is the blue guy on the left, and the Rookie, who's the green guy on the right. War. It's more likely than you think. That nasty boy Darrigan is back with a vengeance, and Meridel finds itself going to war for a second time. This time, however, Darrigan actually gets overthrown. So, see ya. See ya, loser. Some other fun things. So there's the Hannah and the Ice Caves plot, which happens. There's a game that also comes out of that you can still play on the site. Pet morphing potions are introduced and then later deemed a quote-unquote mistake. I don't know what that means. I'm not going to ask questions. And also really excitingly, 10 million pets have been registered on the site. So this is like really the site's really starting to blow up here, if it wasn't already before. And now we're going to get to the fun stuff. Y'all ready for this? You probably also have heard about this. Viacom buys Neopets in 2005 for a whopping 160 million US dollars. Viacom says that Neopets kind of fits in the same vein as their other kid-friendly content. So, I mean, Viacom's the people who own, like, Nickelodeon and stuff, for example. And they also really like Doug Doring's immersive marketing tactics. So he and some of the other upper management ended up staying after the transition. And, of course, Adam and Donna also stayed going into this. There was also a movie at some point. So Warner Bros. Announced in 2005 that there would be a CG Neopets film that didn't actually end up releasing, which is unfortunate because the guy who created Jimmy Neutron was supposed to direct it. And no one knows why it didn't get made. I'm really sad that it did not get made because I would have watched the hell out of this. I love Jimmy Neutron. And also Neopets, so like that would have been really cool to see. Unfortunately, it never actually got made. There was also a PlayStation 2 game that came out. I never got to play it because I was a pretty hardcore Nintendo kid. I heard it's okay. Hope I get to try it someday. But yeah, this is probably the bigger game release that they had. Hold on, I'm going to take a drink. It was probably one of the bigger game releases that they had. There were some other games for like the DS, and we'll later talk about the mobile games that they made. But this was probably one of the bigger ones and worth noting. Some other stuff, so mods can suspend accounts now. They get the good old suspension hammer in their moderation tool belt. Speaking of tool belts, there's a Neopets toolbar that's introduced to the site as like a downloadable thing that you can get for your web browser. The Pet Lab opens, so there's a thing called the secret lab on Neopets that you can buy map pieces for, and when you get access to that, you can send your pets over to be zapped by the ray once a day, and when you do that, their stats kind of get changed, and they can change entire species and colors. There's some exclusive colors you can only get from the lab ray, but when you also make this map, you get access to the Pet Lab after you make that map, which is unfortunate because the Pet Lab map is a lot cheaper than the actual lab map, which can cost you millions of Neopoints. But yeah, just a little bit of background on that. There's also the Lost Desert plot, which you can see some lovely art from Claire Hummel over here on the side. And then we've got some new pets. So we've got the Sweetalk, we got the Ogren, and we got the Hissy. I will talk about the Sweetalk and I think the Ogren in a little bit, but I love the Sweetalk. They're really cute. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but I like them. And now we're in year 8, so the Neopets world map finally gets a long overdue facelift. So here we see it's a lot cleaner. You can rotate the globe because there's a lot more locations that get added over time. It definitely reflects better the expansion of the site and the universe that they built. We've also got more pets. So we got the Norbu on the left and we got the Lutari on the right. Lutaris are a real pain to get. So they were introduced with a mobile game that came out a while back. Like, I think the only way you could adopt one is if you had that game. It doesn't exist anymore. It's one of those super old mobile games. But Lutari are also really annoying to get because you can't disown them, you can't transfer them, and they very rarely go up for creation in the create a pet screen. Usually the way that it works with limited edition pets is sometimes on their birthday, the pet's birthday, they'll release a limited quantity of them to create on the site, but not always. And Lutari are really annoying to get. So really your only other options outside of that are either get a morphing potion or hope you get lucky with the birthday thing. I actually did get one a few years back, if you saw in the earlier slide, from a birthday create a pet thing. I remember my friends and I were like all frantically messaging like, Lutaris! You can make Lutaris now! It was crazy. I think I got people who like didn't even really play Neopets that much to be like, I need to get this pet. And also, there were a bunch of plots. So these plots lead to the discovery of 2 new lands. So Shenku and Neovia were added to the map. One of these plots that came out this year is actually still playable, which is the Altador mini plot, which, I mean, it's pretty cool. It's like the only side plot you can still really play the entire thing all the way through. Some of it uses star charts. It's wild. It's definitely something worth checking out if you have some free time during the pandemic to play Neopets, which is still available and free. Year 9. Get ready for some sad stuff. So, our friends Adam and Donna, this year will part ways with Neopets. So they cited a lot of lack of control over business operations for the site. They were still very involved with the creative parts of it before they left. They were also feeling extremely burnt out because they put a lot of time and effort into the site for like, what is this, year 9? Like 7-8 years at this point. So they were tired and they wanted a break and they decided, all right, time to pack my bags and move away. So a fun fact, Donna actually admitted in an AMA on Reddit that she had accepted the Sweetalk and the Ogren designs out of spite because she was frustrated with her experience working on the site as the years went on. And she just accepted them because despite the fact she hated them, she was like, fine, if you're going to be like this, I'm just going to accept these terrible pet designs. But joke's on her because the Sweetalk is like I said, one of my favorite pet designs. It's really cute. I don't know how you could accept that out of spite. But I understand. But yeah, I was sad to see them go. They were a really big part of making the site what it is, you know. The site also gets a facelift. So this is how the site looks now. I don't know. We're starting to see some changes as the site transitions into mobile, which we'll talk about a bit later at the end of the presentation. But this is how it looked for a good chunk of the site's history. More updated. The stuff on the side is moved to the top of the bar and stuff. Yeah. Neopets. And then... Oh, right. There's an animation for this one. The site begins toying with this fun little thing called microtransactions. So, this is in addition to the premium service they had already been offering for a while. But this kind of led to its primary function which was to allow you to customize your pet's appearance. So you could buy clothing. Some of it's really cute, honestly. Some of it's animated. You can also buy some clothing items with Neo points. I think that was added a bit later. I don't think that was at launch. The fan base was generally pretty divided about this, as gamers usually are when it comes to microtransactions. But yeah, I mean, this is an older screenshot of my pet. I probably should have gotten a new one. This was before I painted her fairy. And then there was also this thing called Neovision, which was a very short-lived, like, kid-friendly Neopets-specific YouTube that was added. So, there were a lot of fan animations. They had some, like, in-house made animations to promote things like the Daily Dare, which is an ongoing kind of recurring event that they have on the site. Yeah, I mean, the ones that they posted from the Neopets team were actually pretty decent, too. It goes offline in October of 2009 in year 11, so unfortunately you can't watch anything that was up there. A lot of people did archive theirs on YouTube, though. I think if you want to see the kind of stuff that got posted there's one called Crackers in My Pocket you can look up. I definitely remember that one from when that was a thing on the site. I also had something up here too, but again, I was a dumb baby and I did not think to back this stuff up when I was little. So that animation unfortunately got lost to the ether. Something about my pet getting like stomach cramps in the swimming pool or something. Also, you can finally achieve your dreams of poking a meteor with a stick. And now we're in year 10. So this is where we see the opening of Pet Pet Park, which is a short-lived game about pets, obviously. You can adopt them, you can hang out with them. I think it had like MMO elements too, where you could see other pets walking around. I forget, it's been such a long time, but yeah, it didn't last more than a few years, but it was cute. It had some really nice art. Also, we see the addition of the game Key Quest, which is kind of like a digital board game inside of Neopets. I think like some merch items that would unlock, like tokens you can use in the game and stuff. It lasted a lot longer than Pet Pet Park, but it was sadly sunset in year 16, 2014, which is sad. It was a pretty long running thing. But it was announced in 2018 there would be a mobile version of it. I just couldn't find any news on them following up with that, which, I mean, understandable. They're working on a bunch of other mobile games right now, so we'll talk about those later. And that brings us to year 11, where we find another location on the map called Motara, through the Atlas of the Ancients plot. I think you can still do some parts of this, like finding the magma pool and stuff. It's like a fetch quest where you have to kind of, like, poke around the map to find these little worms. I don't think I ever finished this on my new account because I couldn't find one specific worm, but someday I will find it and it'll be all over for you. And we also see that Fairyland and Terror Mountain get makeovers. So we'll talk about Fairyland again right now. So about Fairyland and makeovers, F's in the chat for Fairyland because it gets yeeted into the ground by an evil Zweetok through the Fairy's Ruin plot, which I really love that plot. It was really good. The comic for that's like really nice looking. This is the slide from the beginning of the presentation. I kind of doctored this image from it to make the opening of the presentation. But this is an actual slide from that comic, like an actual panel from that comic. It was really nice looking. We're not talking about that though. We're talking about how like Fairyland's like in the ground, literally like a year after being renovated, completely redone for the site. So yeah, friendship ended with Sky Fairyland. Now Ground Fairyland is my new best friend. Fairyland then gets redesigned again. And despite the site constantly suggesting that Fairyland would go back to the sky, I don't think it actually ever did. Like, it's been like 10 years at this point. I don't think it's gonna happen. But, I mean, New Fairyland looks nice. I like the earthy kind of feel, you know? Get it together, Fiora. And now we're gonna get into probably one of my favorite tidbits of Neopets history. I'm going to take a drink real quick first because there's a lot of talking on this one. So, this is what my panel is named after. There was one meme that came out of the site through issue 442 of the Neopian Times, where someone asked the editor about, I think it was like, do you actually hand curate all of the winning entries, like all of the entries that people can vote for in the caption contest that they run? And they were like, I mean, we could randomly pick some, and they randomly picked a few, with one of them being, I'm just gonna read it, but it's for this image that's on the right. Ah, Mr. Snecky, I see you are wearing your fan's top. You are wearing yours too, Mr. Coconut. Speaking of coconut, where did you get the flying hat of coconut? What coconut? Oh, that coconut near my head. What a coconut on my head. Boom. Ah, my head. Good night, Mr. Coconut. There was definitely at least one item where they referenced this again later. But I think this is probably like the biggest meme to have come out of this little place on the internet, you know? It's a classic meme. It's a good meme. And then there was another game that was released called Astounding Habitarium. So this was a super easy way to get money. Which also causes some problems down the line. The Neopets economy, like I said, the Neopets economy kind of set the framework early for it to not be great in the future. It doesn't last very long. Habitarium's eventually removed in year 16, which is 2014. And now we're in year 13. Fairy quests are back, baby! The fairies were frozen in stone during the fairies' ruin plot, but then they came back, and then when they were like, oh no, Fairyland's in the ground, we need to rebuild, the quests are kind of given an overhaul, so you can there's like a better hub for it. They do some events eventually throughout the site where you can get fairy quests every single day for a limited time, and then a Neopian, or an NC Mall, Neocash tie-in, fairy was added. So this is like related to the microtransactions I was mentioning earlier. Her name's Delina. She's added, and her whole thing's about buying like crafting components with Neocash. You can get some pretty nice items with hers, but I mean, they cost money, like real money. And then the Wheel of Extravagance is added for the Neopian 1%. I think this was like introduced as a way to kind of try to help with the inflation problem on Neopets. It's generally not worth it, but if you have 100k Neopoints to spend, sure, I guess you can get an avatar from it, but it's a pretty expensive avatar to get because there's no guarantee you can get it on your first spin. So good luck. I don't think it's worth it, but if you wanna, you can go for it, I guess. Anchor management's a thing, so it's a new daily where you go and you try to quell this giant kraken that's underneath Croc Island to make sure it doesn't destroy Croc Island. I don't know why I don't have notes on this. I could have sworn I had some speaker notes on this, but alright. And I'm gonna skip like 2 years because not a lot really happens in those 2 years. And I'm running out of time because I've got like 20 minutes left. So you've probably heard about this. Most recently, Neopets was acquired by Jumpstart in year 16, which is 2014. Jumpstart buys the site from Viacom for an undisclosed amount of money. We don't know how much. Says they're really interested in expanding to mobile and optimizing the player experience. And they do kind of uphold this because the site has been making the transition to mobile and they've been releasing mobile games and stuff. They were supposedly interested in toying with AR and VR stuff, but I don't think they ever did anything with that. I don't know if they still plan to do stuff with that. Who knows? Also, I had to include my favorite Jumpstart, arguably the best Jumpstart edutainment game, Jumpstart 3rd Grade, on this slide. But meanwhile, beloved staff member and creative director Snarky makes the hard decision to step down after 12 years of working on the site. So if you were ever really involved with Neopets, you've probably heard her name before. She was a pretty big deal. And, like, the Neopet staff in general were kind of introduced in a very humanizing, kind of fun way. But Snarky's one of the ones that was better known on the site of the staff members. So her leaving was really sad to a lot of people. She confirmed on Tumblr after she stepped down that she actually intended on playing Neopets beyond leaving the site. Although I don't think she's allowed to use her old... I think, like, they memorialized her old username, so she can't actually log into it or anything. But this comic was given to her on her last day of work there, which was a nice sentiment. Also, there's a new pet. I didn't include this in the first version of my presentation for some reason, but, so the Vandergeir is added to the site. It's the most recent pet to be added in the site's history. I don't think they've added any more since then. And now we're in year 17, where, early in the year, a majority of the Neopet staff gets laid off, which unfortunately is not super uncommon for the games industry. But layoffs don't usually involve this large of a percentage of the overall team. I think Neopets was, like, at its peak, like, over 100 people, and it got reduced to, like, a very small fraction of that. And then you've probably heard about this. On June 29th of this year, the profanity filter goes offline, the mods are asleep, and people start posting a lot of not safe for work and bigoted content in the Neo boards. I can't really post any of this because it's really inappropriate and probably is not safe for work at all for this panel. So here's a picture I got from a BuzzFeed article about it. BuzzFeed affectionately calls this day the day the Neopets died. And the Neopets team responded to this incident by taking the Neo boards off for a bit while they fixed things. It caused a lot of negative sentiment and press. There's also a new mobile game at this point. So here's Ghoul Catchers. It's a match 3 game that got released. It's very easy to farm Neo points from this too. You can get like 50k Neo points a day from this game. It was a pretty solid game though. I don't remember it being like bad. There's also legal problems. So this is the thing I found out about, like, last week from, like, I was scrolling through Tumblr and I heard about this. In October 2015, so year 17, Neopets was hit with a class action lawsuit because the site wasn't very transparent in its terms and conditions about its premium renewal policies, like its automatic renewal policies. And this caused a lot of people to lose a lot of money, and a lot of parents to lose a lot of money for their kids. So it wasn't great. There was a class action lawsuit regarding it. And LawyerBot, our friend over here, who's an actual Neopets character, is on the case. And good news, because in year 18, they resolved the class action lawsuit. It's resolved in April 2016. It was resolved very mutually between both parties. That's about as much information as I have on it. I can't believe I missed this the first time I made this panel. And we're gonna skip to year 20, where a new mobile game called Legends and Letters is released, and Legends and Letters is announced. It's not actually released this year, but a mobile version of Neopets is also announced, and we don't start seeing that until more recently, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The mobile version was supposed to complement the site, but not actually replace it. I'll talk about this a little bit later, I feel like. Legends and Letters was originally due in October of this year, I believe. We'll get back to this in a little bit, though, because it doesn't release till next year. There's also, for the first time, at not New York City Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, they start doing after-parties, like Neopets-themed after-parties. So they've done 2 since then. I bet there probably would have been a 3rd one, but fortunately, conventions did not happen in person this year. But yeah, so at San Diego Comic-Con 2018, they host their first after-party, which is pretty cool, honestly. And now we're going to get to year 21, where Legends of Letters finally soft launches on mobile January 15th. So this means they began a phased rollout of the game in certain countries just to see how it does before they expanded it to the rest of the market. It's pretty common in mobile games. It's not really an unusual sort of thing. So the soft launch happens on February 15th, and then a mostly global launch happens on February 28th, but the game doesn't release in the Netherlands and Belgium for some reason. I could not find a reason why. I guess it might have been legal reasons or something. But by the end of the year, the game will let you log in with your Neopets account so you can earn trophies and stuff too. So it didn't launch with Neopets integration, but it did eventually launch with that as an option. Also, I couldn't find a good second slide to put this on, so I'll bring it up here. In November, the site would also start letting users create up to 6 pets, or 7 if you have premium. So you can have a lot of pets on Neopets now. And now that brings us to the present. We're actually doing great on time. So, the present, that's right now. So remember that Neopets April Fool's Day prank? Well, it's back. Say hello to Nick Neopia, who has weaseled his way back onto the site as everyone's favorite ideas guy. So he proposed a new site redesign with suggested changes, including all text will be displayed backwards. Links will take you to who knows, it'll take you somewhere. It was like random. And then games, but in 13 dimensions. I don't know what that means. But yeah, our boy's back. Also, Neopets announces its a beta for its mobile-friendly site redesign, which we had just talked about a few slides back. It starts as a closed beta in April and then recently opened as an open beta in June. And the site's been kind of going through like ongoing updates to that mobile-friendly site. And the site's also starting, like, even on desktop, it kind of adopts the same sort of mobile-friendly layout. But yeah, it's still a work in progress. It's probably a matter of time till the whole thing gets converted to this mobile-friendly format because Flash is getting retired very soon. Rest in peace, Flash. There's also a new mobile game that I had not heard anything about. It released on, it was first a closed beta on Android in May, and then on July 8th, it released only on Android. I believe they said that iOS is on the way. It's a game called Neopets Island Builders. I mean, from the screenshots I saw, it looks pretty cool, but I know absolutely nothing about it because I am an iPhone user. Also, back to mobile games. Legends and Letters and Ghoul Catchers both are announced to be retired. So they were very recently pulled, like last month on July 22nd. But if you still have either game downloaded, you can still play them and redeem like Neo points and stuff with your account until December 31st at the end of the year. So you can still play them. You just can't download them on the storefronts anymore. They're already gone. And then Neopets merch, expensive. In celebration of San Diego Comic-Con, Neopets partnered with nerd jewelry site What's Your Passion Jewelry to make some fancy Neopets necklaces, which come with this code for like an in-game item as well. There was also a bit of controversy because some people noticed that the Shoyu necklace had been stolen from someone's fan art, but they've since addressed the situation with the artist, I believe, and now they're being credited on the store page and also the Neopet site as well. And the future, who knows? I mean, I'm recording this a month before it airs, like roughly a month before it airs. So, for all I know, something big could happen in the next few weeks that's not in this panel. So if that happens, I apologize. But it's going to be really interesting to see how the site evolves from here, to see if maybe the transition to mobile makes it a bit more accessible for people to play. I mean, people aren't really going much of anywhere these days, but I remember when I was younger, like, trying to access Neopets on my phone was, like, near impossible. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that changes the site's community and climate and stuff, if it brings back old members of the site. But it's hard to tell at this point. All we know is that they have to convert the site to mobile soon, or else convert the site to a more web-friendly format soon, or else we're going to lose it. But it looks like they're on their way with that. Yeah, so we'll see. I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see. Final thoughts. I love doing this panel the first time. I can't believe that I get to do it again. Neopets has like the most bizarre and fascinating site history, and it's been really fun spending this time getting to know this integral part of my childhood so much better. Neopets really laid the foundation for me becoming a community manager, so I don't think I realized it at the time. Obviously, I studied art in college, and then I graduated, and then I started doing CM, so, like, I don't think I considered, though, how important Neopets was to getting me interested in that, because, like, it was the first online community I was really a part of growing up. Yeah, and I'm so glad that I got to run this panel again, so... to round things off, I just want to give some special thanks. I mean, obviously, to the people at ReadPop for accepting this. I still can't believe that this got into PAX Online. I can't wait to watch it with all of you in the chat when it airs. Special thanks to Jelly Neo, who has, like, this ridiculously updated, like, summary of the site history. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that I pulled from other sources as well, but they were really good for getting, like, smaller, like, site details and such. And they also had, like, the screenshots for that one new mobile game that I had a few slides back. The fan sites are a great resource if you ever want to learn more about Neopets, honestly. Neopets user R and I Pretty, Discord user Kiana from the Neopets, the R Neopets Discord. The Neopets Wiki, another great resource for Neopets history and lore and stuff. The Neopets team for making Neopets in the first place. And yeah, you want to hear me talk about Neopets and other stuff that isn't just Neopets? You can follow me on Twitter at LitVacArt. So, yeah, I tweet about a lot of different things on my Twitter, including Neopets, obviously, community management, drawings of many things, but mostly just my D&D character. Pictures of food, memes, and if you liked this, I actually moderated a panel back at PAX East this year called From Glitter Graphics to Game Dev. You can find it on YouTube. It's got a bunch of really awesome women in the games industry talking about their experiences with online games in the early 2000s, including games like Neopets. It's a great watch. I definitely recommend it if you're interested in seeing me talk to people about Neopets more, I guess. Although I guess in this case, it's more listening to people talk about Neopets and also other games. It's great. Look it up. It's a good time. And yeah, thank you for watching. I really appreciate you all coming, and I'm glad I could share all this with all of you once again. I hope you have a great and very safe day, month, year. Wishing you the best in the rest of 2020, and I want to thank you again for just watching. I appreciate it. Have a good day. See you around.